I bolted upright in bed, my heart slamming against my ribs like a wild mustang trapped in a corral. The crack of gunfire shattered the pre-dawn silence, echoing across the frost-laced yard of our ranch in Ironwood, Montana territory. It was spring of 1885, but the chill in the air bit like winter's last grudge, and that shot, sharp, deliberate, sent ice through my veins. Was it rustlers, outlaws sniffing around our stock again? Or something worse, some ghost from the frontier's bloody past come calling? I didn't waste time pondering. My bare feet hit the cold plank floor, and I snatched the lantern from the bedside table, its flame flickering to life as I struck the match. My nightgown whispered against my skin, but I ignored the gooseflesh rising on my arms. Out here on the edge of nowhere, hesitation could cost you everything. Your livestock, your home, maybe your life. I grabbed Pa's old Winchester from the corner, the wood smooth and familiar under my fingers, and slipped out the back door into the shadows. The yard was a sea of frost-glittering grass, the cottonwoods along the creek bed whispering secrets in the wind that howled down from the vast, star-studded skies. I could hear the horses stirring in the corral, their snorts and stomps cutting through the night. My limp, that faint hitch from the fever that nearly took me as a child, slowed me just a touch, but I'd learned long ago to turn it into a deliberate stride, one that said I wasn't about to back down. As I neared the rails, another sound froze me, a low whinny of pain, followed by the scuffle of boots on dirt. There, in the dim glow of my lantern, stood our prize stallion, Midnight, trembling like a leaf in a gale. His foreleg was gashed deep, blood dark against his black coat, tangled in a snarl of barbed wire that someone, or something, had clearly tampered with. My breath caught. This wasn't an accident. The wire had been cut, deliberate-like, and the shadows beyond the corral shifted, hinting at movement. "Easy, boy," I whispered, my voice steady as a creek bedstone, even as my pulse thundered. I set the lantern down and knelt in the mud, pressing my palm to his neck. His muscles quivered under my touch, but he trusted me. Always had since the day Pa brought him home as a colt. I could feel his heat, his fear mirroring mine. From the gate a figure emerged, Jake, our ranch hand, his face pale as milk under his battered hat. He clutched a pitchfork like it was a talisman, eyes darting to the darkness. "Miss Clara, you hear that shot? Reckon it's rustlers. I ought to fetch the sheriff, or the doc for that leg." I shook my head, binding the wound with a strip of cloth from my hem, quick and sure. "No time for fetching, Jake. Bring me the carbolic from the tack room, and keep your eyes peeled. Them shadows ain't empty." He hesitated, shifting his weight, but I shot him a look that brooked no argument. Jake was a good man, loyal as they come, but he spooked easy in the night. As he scurried off, I heard it, a rustle in the brush beyond the fence. My hand flew to the Winchester, cocking it with a click that echoed like thunder in my ears. "Who's out there?" I called, my voice cutting through the wind like a whip. "Show yourself, or I'll put a bullet where the moon don't shine." The shadows parted, and a figure stepped into the lantern's glow, a tall, wiry stranger with a bandana pulled high over his face, eyes glinting like coyotes in the dark. He held a revolver loose at his side, but my rifle was already aimed square at his chest. Time stretched, the wind howling between us, my finger itching on the trigger. Who was he? A drifter? Part of a gang eyeing our herd? Ironwood had seen its share of trouble. Cattle thieves from the Badlands, outlaws fleeing the law. One wrong move, and this night could end in blood. He froze, weighing his odds, then slowly raised his hands. "Ain't looking for trouble, ma'am. Just passing through." But his eyes flicked to Midnight, and I knew better. Rustlers had hit the neighboring spreads hard this spring, leaving families destitute. "Not on my watch." "Pass on, then," I growled, my limp forgotten as I stepped forward, rifle steady. "And don't come sniffing around Hawthorne land again." He backed away, melting into the night like smoke, but the tension lingered, coiling in my gut. Jake returned with the carbolic, his hands shaking as he handed it over. "You reckon he's gone, Miss Clara? That shot. Could be more of 'em." I doused the wound, Midnight flinching but holding still. "For now. But keep the lantern high and your wits sharper." As I worked, my mind raced. Why, our ranch. We weren't the biggest in Ironwood, but Pa's passing last year had left us vulnerable. Ma, my sister Lydia, and me, scraping by on grit and grace. Folks in town whispered we were easy pickings, what with no man at the helm, but they didn't know me. I'd mend this horse, mend the fences, mend whatever broke in this harsh land, because giving up wasn't in my blood. By the time the sky lightened to a bruised gray, midnight was bandaged and calm, stabled with fresh hay. Jake mumbled his thanks and headed to his bunk, but sleep evaded me. I lingered on the porch, the chill seeping into my bones, staring at the endless prairie stretching like a promise unkept. Unspoken dreams swirled in my head, dreams of a life beyond mending and mucking, of arms that held me not out of duty but desire. But who would see past my plain face, my limp, my calloused hands? In Ironwood, beauty opened doors. The rest of us just held them ajar. The town itself was a rugged speck under those vast skies, where howling winds carried tales of fortune and folly. Cottonwoods lined the creek beds, their leaves whispering secrets of lovers lost and fortunes found. Folks here lived hard, miners chasing silver veins, ranchers wrestling the land, all under the shadow of the Rockies. Ironwood's single street boasted a mercantile, a saloon where fists flew as often as cards, and a church where sinners sought solace on Sundays. Prejudices ran deep as the mines. Families like ours were judged by bloodlines and beauty, and the Hawthornes. Well, we had one daughter shining like a polished spur and the other, me, steady as an old plow horse. As the sun crested, Lydia emerged from the house, her golden hair catching the light like a halo, a parcel of lace from the mercantile tucked under her arm. She was the radiant one, my younger sister by 3 years, with eyes like summer skies and a smile that could melt the frost off any cowboy's heart. Men straightened when she passed, tipping hats and stumbling over words, while women envied her effortless grace. "Morning, Clara," she called, her voice light as birdsong. "You look like you wrestled a bear last night. What kept you up?" I forced a smile, wiping my hands on my apron. "Just the usual, horses and haunts. Midnight got tangled. Fixed him up." She laughed, that silver bell ring that drew glances from the cowboys mending fences nearby. "Always the hero, sister. But honestly, when will you let someone else handle the rough stuff? Like that new hand, Billy. He's sweet on you, you know." Billy, the hesitant boy who'd helped with the feed sacks yesterday, blushed from across the yard, his hat twisting in his fingers. He was barely 18, all gangly limbs and earnest eyes, hired on after Pa's death to lighten the load. "Miss Clara, need help with them sacks?" He'd asked in the barn's dim light, dust motes dancing like fireflies. I'd handed him the lighter ones, shouldering the heavy myself. "Take these." "Billy, leave the rest to me." He admired my strength, I knew, but it was the kind of look a boy gives a sturdy oak, not a blooming rose. I shook my head at Lydia. "Billy's got enough on his plate. Besides, I prefer things done right." She rolled her eyes playfully, but there was the edge to it, a reminder of our differences. Lydia floated through life, parcels and pretties in hand, while I grounded it, measuring grain in the barn's shadows, stacking sacks with hands that knew work's ache. Townfolk treated it like gospel, Lydia destined for a grand match, me for quiet toil, perhaps spinsterhood or a pity union. It stung, deep in my chest, that quiet ache of being unseen, but I buried it under resolve. Love. I'd glimpsed it in Ma and Pa's stolen glances, but for me, it felt as distant as the stars. Inside for supper, the kitchen smelled of chili and cornbread, Ma eyeing us like appraising livestock. She was a sturdy woman, widowed too young, her face lined with the prairie's harsh lessons. "Clara, sit before it cools." "Lydia, mind your Pa's chair, don't scuff it." We ate in the flickering lamplight, Lydia bubbling about the upcoming barn raising. "Oh, it'll be grand, dancing under the lanterns, and I hear that prominent rancher Elias Thorne might be back by Sunday. Tall as a pine, they say, with a spread bigger than God's backyard." Ma's eyes lit up. "Elias Thorne? Now there's a catch. Loyal as they come, drove herds north through blizzards without losing a soul." I stirred my chili, mentioning the fences needing mends against coyotes. Lydia scoffed lightly. "Fences and coyotes, Clara, you think like a rancher, not a lady. Wouldn't you rather dream of dances and beaux?" Her words pricked, but I met her gaze steadily. "Dreams don't feed the stock, Lydia, but go on. Tell us more about this Thorne fellow." She leaned in, voice laced with anticipation. "He's got eyes like storm clouds, they say, and a heart no woman's claimed yet. Imagine if he noticed me." I sipped from my tin mug on the porch later, dusk painting the prairie in fading gold. The wind carried whispers of change, but my heart felt heavy with unspoken longings. What would it be like to be noticed, not for my strength, but for the soft places inside? To have a man look at me and see a partner, a lover, not just a helper? The stars mocked me with their distance, and I wondered if my life would forever be this, shadows and solitude. That night, I patrolled the barn stalls like sacred ground, the hay-scented air soothing my frayed nerves. Midnight's leg was mending, his gentle nudge against my hand a quiet thanks. But as I trimmed the lantern, hoofbeats thundered in the distance, and Ironwood stirred with news. Elias Thorne had ridden in, a towering figure on a bay stallion, his ranch spanning horizons like a king's domain. Tales preceded him, trail drives through Indian territory, unyielding loyalty to his men, a past shadowed by loss. Who was he really, and why did the thought of him unsettle me so? Sunday dawned with a bite in the air, the wagon rumbling toward church. I clutched the hymnal, my best calico dress feeling stiff, while Lydia fussed with her bonnet, ribbons fluttering. Men's eyes lingered on her as we stepped down, cowboys murmuring, "Morning, Miss Lydia," their hats dipping low. Inside, the benches filled with the town's hardy souls, miners with coal-dusted hands, ranch wives in faded gingham, Preacher Amos at the pulpit thundering about redemption. Midway through a hymn, the doors creaked open, boots thudding on the floorboards. Dust swirled as Elias Thorne entered, his broad shoulders filling the frame, hat in hand. The congregation hushed. Even the wind seemed to pause. He was taller than tales suggested, with a jaw carved from granite, eyes like shadowed canyons under a brow furrowed by years on the trail. His dark coat clung to a frame honed by hard rides, and something in his stance commanded respect, or fear. Whispers rippled. "Thorne's back. Wonder who's next in his sights." After the sermon, in the churchyard under swaying cottonwoods, Ma nudged Lydia forward, her smile beaming. "Mr. Thorne, surely you remember my lovely younger daughter Lydia. She's bloomed since you last rode through." Lydia dipped her head, sunlight catching her ribbons. "An honor to see you return, sir." But Elias's gaze moved past her, settling on me like a weight I hadn't expected. My heart stuttered. "Why me?" I stood a step back, hymnal pressed close. No curtsy, no forced smile, just my steady eyes meeting his. The yard fell silent as he spoke, voice deep as thunder rolling over the plains. "Mrs. Hawthorne, I'd like permission to court your elder daughter." Gasps erupted. Ma nearly dropped her fan. Lydia's face faltered, her practiced smile cracking like thin ice. "You must mean me," she laughed, but it rang hollow. "No, ma'am," Elias said, firm as iron. "I meant Clara." Murmurs swelled, neighbors leaning in, eyes wide. Billy, lingering nearby, shot me a confused glance, while Jake muttered to a cowboy, "Thorne pickin' the plain one? World's gone loco." I tightened my grip on the hymnal, face unchanged, but inside, a storm brewed. Why me? What did he see that others missed? Acceptance came quiet. "As you wish, Mr. Thorne." By sundown, Ironwood buzzed, not with the preacher's words, but the rancher who'd bypassed the beauty for the overlooked sister. Whispers followed me home, pity for Lydia, curiosity for me. That evening, rain pattered against the shutters as a knock sounded. Elias stood there, hat in hand, water dripping from his coat. "Miss Hawthorne," he said, voice low. "Might we speak?" Ma's voice drifted sharp from the parlor. "Don't be long." In the dim library, smelling of old ledgers and lamp oil, he set his hat down. "I'll be plain. I ain't seeking romance. Need a marriage of convenience, respect, decency. No more. You'll have the house, land, security, but no affection required." His words hung heavy, his eyes guarded. I stood still, hands folded, the quiet ticking of the clock loud. Why this? Why now? My heart ached for more than convenience, but life had taught me practicality. "If that's what you seek, I'll agree. Comfort ain't a vow's demand." Surprise flickered in his eyes, faint but there. He nodded. "Good. We understand each other." As he left, his boots echoing, I brushed a worn book, wondering at the man behind the walls. Later, I overheard Lydia in the hall, her voice a hiss to Ma, "He can't mean it. I'll make sure the town knows." Whisper a doubt or two. "Clara, she's not fit for him." Jealousy simmered in her tone, planting seeds of intrigue. What would she do? And what hidden wounds drove Elias to choose safety over spark? The rain drummed on, mirroring the turmoil in my soul, as the prairie night closed in, full of unspoken promises and perils yet to come. The days blurred into a rhythm of ranch work and restless thoughts. I rose before dawn, the memory of that gunshot still echoing in my mind, checking the corral with a vigilance born of that night. Jake had taken to patrolling with me, his pitchfork at the ready, muttering about them no-good rustlers circling like vultures. He was a widower himself, with a daughter back east, sending money when he could. "You got spine, Miss Clara," he'd say, tipping his hat. Most ladies had fainted a shadow, but faint I didn't. The wound on midnight healed slow, and I tended it daily, my hands gentle on his flank. In those quiet moments, my mind